here. Kind of today, what we're going to talk about is how to answer the most common SDR interview questions, right? You got into that interview. Right now, the hiring market's tough. You're not getting into a lot of interviews. And so you got to make sure you're capitalizing on this interview. And so today, we're going to walk through those most common questions, mistakes I often see candidates make, and how they can, correct all of that. And so let's just jump into, I came up with a little presentation for you guys. And so I think this will be pretty helpful. And so let me know if you can see my screen in the chat. That would be awesome. Just want to make sure. And yeah, let's start by talking about with who I am. If you don't know me at all, you might be asking, like, why should I listen to this brown dude? So here's kind of the reason why. And so to date, we've helped over 60 plus SDR candidates. As of this week, we just helped, I believe, our 61st. And so we gotta update our socials, all that kind of stuff, and let people know that we're now at 60 plus. And we're helping these candidates get jobs at top tier tech sales companies. And they're getting these jobs within 50 days of working with us. And so we're constantly meeting with candidates before their real interviews and doing mock interviews with them, making sure they're prepared. And so, you can check out what we're doing at techsalesmentors.com. But that's why you should listen to me, is because I've put in the reps. I've put in hundreds of hours on helping SDR candidates perfect these interview answers. I've figured out all the mistakes. I've figured out how to deliver these answers correctly. And so talking about the agenda here today, really, we're going to go over 4 big topics. And so one, we're just going to start with broad interviewing principles. No matter if this is a first round, second round, final round, if you're in an SDR interview or not, these are just good general interviewing principles that you can carry through for the rest of your life. And then we'll get into the 3 most common questions SDRs get. And so that's tell me about yourself, that's why sales, and that's why our company. And then finally at the end, if we have time, if I'm feeling like the chat is excited, if there's high energy, then I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. And also, as I'm going through the presentation, ask any questions. I'll be trying to monitor the chat as I go along. And so feel free, like, I'm here to help you guys. So ask your questions. Let me know what's not clear. Let me know what you have follow-ups on, all that good stuff. And so let's start with broad interviewing principles, right? There's 3 of them. And so interview principle number 1 is put yourself in the shoes of the employer, right? And so what does that really mean? Like, this is a good sort of, this is a good like sales lesson for you, is you want to sort of, you want to know your audience. You want to know who you're talking about, who you're talking to, and what they care about, right? And so like you basically you want to do what's called like reverse engineering, right? You want to understand what the end goal is and then reverse engineer, find your way to the beginning of crafting your answer that satisfies them, that makes them think, cool, I want to advance this person to the next round. And so a good question to ask yourself is, if I was hiring someone, if I was running a company or whatever, what would I want someone to say, right? And so let's go over some examples. I think this will help, a lot more. So here would be some examples. Let's say you're hiring someone for your company. You're hiring your first employee ever, and you ask them, "Hey, why do you want to join our company?" And they respond with something, "Well, I saw this was a remote role, and that's why I want to join your company." Okay, if you're hiring that person, is that what you want to hear them say? Do you want them, the reason they want to join your company is because they want a remote role, right? No, like, you want to hear them talk about how they're excited to work on the problem you're working on, or how they have the skill set that is necessary to do the job. And so to step back a little bit, it's not to say, hey, you shouldn't want a remote role. Lots of you probably in the chat are like, hey, I'm interested in tech sales. I heard you can get a remote role. That's cool. And that can be the case for you, but that doesn't mean that's what you lead with in your answer, right? You have to understand what your audience wants to hear, and you have to come up with answers that reflect that, right? Maybe you're coming from a work environment where you are working, 12 to 14 to 16-hour days. And you hear in tech sales, you can still make good money and work closer to 40, 50, maybe sometimes 60-hour work weeks. And that excites you. And so maybe that's your answer when someone asks you, hey, why do you want to get into tech sales? And you respond with, well, I want to work less. Not a good answer. Maybe true, but not a good answer, right? That's not what someone who you are hiring, that's not something you would really want to hear, right? And so those are examples of things you shouldn't say, right? Things I often hear that aren't good reasons for interview answers. Here would be like a few good ones, right? Here would be kind of if you're putting yourselves in the shoe of an employer, what they want to hear. Here's kind of things they want to hear. First thing would be something like, I've really enjoyed learning about your product and I'm very excited about the chance to sell it, right? You'd obviously want to go deeper than that, but that would be a general theme for an answer. And then you talk to what you're learning about the product and so on and so forth, right? That shows to me as an employer, like, cool, like this person is curious. This person is fired up to do the job. This person has sort of the eagerness to do well. Another example would be this was definitely the case for me when I broke into tech sales. So I broke into tech sales like 7-ish years ago. And I was at a point where I was just so fascinated with technology and being in startups and just like making shit happen. And so, kind of a general theme of an answer for me was like, I really want to grind. I want to absorb as much feedback as possible. And I want to become a top performer. Right. And again, that was like the broad theme of my answer. I went deeper into that, but it wasn't, oh, I want to work for a tech startup because I hear you guys have free snacks. Or I heard you guys have like free dinners if you stay till 6. Right. Like those are nice things. Don't get me wrong, but that's not what the employer wants to hear. And so that's interview principle number one is know your audience, put yourselves in the shoes of an employer, think to what would they want to hear in someone that they're hiring? What would a great employee look like in their minds? Okay, so okay, great question. Before I go forward, Isabel says, what if it's a company that prides itself in being remote? Okay, so you have to understand sort of there's there's two sides to the coin here. And so often HR, like at a company, human resources, the recruiting department, they're trying to say things that will attract employees to the company. We're the best place to work. We have a remote work environment. We have great work-life balance. We have, full health insurance for you, all the suite of benefits, all this kind of stuff. And that will help them attract like candidates and recruits to the company. But you're interviewing with like sales managers and so it's just kind of like they have to do that to attract candidates, but ultimately like the actual recruiter you're interviewing with and the actual sales managers you're interviewing with don't want to hear like, well, you're excited to join here because we have great work-life balance. That's not what you want to lead with. And so you got to keep sort of these two things in your mind. Great question as well. I love that. So then interviewing principle number 2, don't be vague. Help me visualize, your previous sales experience or your previous experiences. And so what I mean by this is often I will hear candidates say things like in the interview, their answers are, I'm a hard worker. I've performed very well. And, I'd be great in this role and I'm going to work really hard. And you have to realize that, like, okay, let's say I'm a recruiter and I'm hiring someone for a role. Um, in 1 week, let's say I interview 10 people for that role. A lot of those interviews I do, let's say 50 to 60%, 50 to 60 to 70% of those candidates, I'm not going to move forward to the next round. And simply it's because they all sound the same. All the candidates sound the same. They're saying the same boring things. They're just saying they have the character traits. They're not telling me stories that show to me that they have those character traits. And so the goal with your interview answers is to sort of create more unique answers, more better storytelling through your past experiences that kind of help paint this picture for the person, helps them visualize, who you are, right? And so let's do an example here. So here's a bad version of me, explaining my past experience. Maybe what I say is, I have a job where I have very tight deadlines, and I have to hit those deadlines, and it's a high volume of activity that I have to do, and I have to have great attention to detail. Okay, so that's me kind of like explaining the skill set, but not really like helping me visualize the story here, right? You want to like paint a picture, like I said, think to like a movie scene or, a TV show that you watch. They really help paint this picture for you. Okay, so what I just explained, that interview answer, I just explained what Santa does, right? Santa has a tight deadline. He has to get out all these presents in one night to all of these kids, right? And so he has tight deadlines, he has a high volume, he has to get through lots of houses, and then he has to have great attention to detail, right? He has to know what every kid wants. And so instead, like maybe I say something like, well, my day is my work day is filled with I'm in a very high stakes, high pressure environment, and in that environment, what I'm doing is delivering gifts to all kids in the world, and all of these kids are looking forward to this night. This is the night they've been waiting for. This is why they've been acting great all year long, and so I got to deliver, and so I have to go to, I don't know, 6 billion, 7 billion homes, 3 billion homes, whatever, in one night. And I have to make sure each kid gets the correct present for them, or else they're just going to hate me. They're never going to love Christmas again. They're going to have no hope. They're going to have no spirit, right? So I'm helping you understand. I'm painting this picture in your mind of my job. I'm making it interesting. I'm making it compelling, right? And so, you may be thinking, okay, how do I like come up with stories that are more answers that are more story worthy? Really, I like three concepts here. So one, I've found when, I'm like at a dinner with my friends, or, I'm on, a first date or something like that, I'm really trying to sell a story that I'm telling, my group of friends or this date about. I'm really trying to be enthusiastic with my delivery, and mention the juiciest bits and make it as interesting as possible. So that's one concept. Put yourself in that sort of frame of mind. Um, Another is sort of what I just went through, right? Think to your favorite TV show, movie, or book character, right? Often the way you remember this person is through like stories of things they've did, right? Not just, oh, like, Batman, he's a really gritty guy, right? No, you think about like Batman beating people's asses, right? You visualize him doing that. And the last thing, last sort of framework for you to apply here is like, can anyone say this? Or is this a story that very few people or only I can tell? Right. And so anyone can say, I'm a hard worker, but not everyone can say, hey, I worked a full time job while also doing full time schoolwork and putting myself through college and getting a 4.0. Right. That's not a lot of people can tell that story. Sure, some people can, but the majority of people can't. And so think to those stories in your life that really show you're amazing. So that's interviewing principle number 2. And so let's go to number 3. So with number 3, it's not just about what you say. It's not just about the content. It's also about the delivery, right? And so kind of like you have to think here, you're applying for a sales role. And if you think to salespeople in general, they're generally great communicators, right? They're confident, they are high energy, and they sound authentic. They don't sound scripted. And so a lot of these interviews are really based on, like the beer test, right? So like often when we think to presidents, we want our president to be relatable. We want to think, hey, I can get a beer with that guy or that gal. And so you want to sort of make this person think in the interview, yeah, I'd be down to spend 40 to 50 hours a week with this person. You want to sort of seem like someone who would be enjoyable to work with. And so it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it. It's about having a good conversation with that person. This isn't just a formal, buttoned up, serious conversation. Think about really connecting with this person and having a great conversation with them, right? Just like you have a great conversation with your friend or, family member at the dinner table. And so those are broad interview principles, right? Now let's get into the actual questions, the most common questions you're going to get. And so number one on here is tell me about yourself, right? Give me a background. Tell me more about your experiences, right? It comes in some sort of flavor form like that. And so with this question, it's really about, we'll walk through how you should structure it and then what you should be putting in it. And so the structure, starting with that, is you want about 80% of the content to be focused on past experiences. Those experiences are experiences that you're going to be bringing up stories that show you can do the SDR job, that show you have the skill set, the experience. And then the last piece, the 20% that you finish with, is talking to the present and the future. Why are we here today, right? Like, why do you want to interview for this role? Why do you want this role? How does this fit into your grander plan, right? And so let's first start with past experiences. And so in general, you should be aiming for an answer in the range of like, let's say 2 to 3 minutes on tell me about yourself. And in general, that's how long your interview answer should be is 2 to 3 minutes. And so with talking about your past experiences, you want to start with a series, and you want to tell it chronologically. You want to think to 3 to 5 career events that show, hey, I have the skill set to be an SDR. And so maybe you're thinking right now, well, I don't know like what the skill set is to be a SDR, right? What are they looking for, right? So go to our website. Let me okay, hold on. Let me change the sharing options here. Let's do this. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. Got it up. So go to our website, techsalesmentors.com. Go to our blog right here. And on the blog, you'll see which one? Oh, part 2 here. Part 2, how to get a job in tech sales. Your hiring manager looks for 5 traits, right? And so you want to tell stories that show you have these character traits, right? So here are a few of them, right? So one is you got that grit, right? You've been rejected in life. And what happened when you got rejected, when you got hit with that adversity? Did you back away? Did you shy away? Did you say, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this thing? Or did you say, no, fuck that. I'm going to overcome this rejection. I'm going to persevere through it and I'm going to succeed, right? That's someone who has grit, is someone who perseveres through rejection in the face of adversity. They don't freak out and think, I can't do this. They think, no, I'm definitely going to do this. And so that's the first trait. Second trait, you're coachable, right? You're new to tech sales, right? Or, even if, let's say you had a tech sales role and you're looking for your next one, you're still in the early stages of your tech sales career, right? So you need to show to me like, hey, I'm going to put you through a month of training when you join our company. But also after that, like I'm going to continue to train you through listening to your calls, looking at your cold emails, meeting with you one-on-week. I need to know that you're not some arrogant person who thinks you know everything, who thinks, I know what to do best here. No, I need you to be coachable. I need you to trust that I can give you the guidance to guide you into doing the things that are successful as a SDR. And so you want to talk about times where you've actively sought feedback, you've implemented that feedback, and you want to talk through the results you got from implementing that feedback. All right, that's 2. 3, you have ownership and accountability. As a SDR in a sales role, you have ownership over a quota. You have a quota you have to hit. And it's no one else's duty to hit your quota. It is your duty alone. And so tell me about times in the past where you have had ownership over something, or you've been accountable to something. And so the best flavor of that is you being in a previous sales role where you've had a quota. Tell me how you performed against it. Tell me how you've beat out your peers on your team and performed better than them. All that good stuff. That's really like the strongest form of ownership and accountability these hiring managers look for is people with previous sales experience. Whether that's like another tech sales role, or if you haven't been in tech sales, you've done sales just in another industry. Um, One sort of side note, if you don't have sales experience and you're looking for a tech sales role right now, you're going to find it difficult. I highly recommend you get sales experience outside of our industry right now, because that's what tech sales managers are looking for in hiring reps right now. And so that's the third thing. Fourth thing is people think sales is all about talking, right? It is not. It's not about pitching the entire time. Good selling starts with listening first, actively listening, understanding what this person cares about and what this person desires, what this person's problems are. And then you pitch, then you talk through, here's how we're going to solve this specific problem you're talking about. Here's how we get you to that dream state, that ideal land that you want to get to in life. And so, yeah, like examples of that would be like, generally, again, I would focus this on sales, like talking about how you ask good discovery questions in your sales calls, you understand their issues, and then you tailor your pitch to them. The pitch you give is never the same. It's always tailored to what the person's problems are. And then the final thing is just like, this kind of obvious, but like no one says it. Like, you want to be in sales. Like, hiring managers want to hire people who are fired up about selling, because being a BDR, being an SDR is not necessarily like an easy job. It's kind of grindy. Let's say you're making 50 to 100 cold calls per day, or you're sending out, 20 to 40 to 50 to 100 personalized cold emails per day. It's very input heavy. And so like, you really have to like sales and what comes with it, the good that comes with it, and talk to your experience in selling roles and how you've enjoyed it to convince this person. Because there can be a high churn for people like entering sales roles. They're like, oh, like I just thought this was like some high paying role where like I control my destiny. But they don't realize that like, oh man, I get rejected all the time. And oh God, this quota, like I just hit it and now it resets in the next quarter and I got to do this all again, right? Like a lot of people can feel that in their first sales role and be like, this isn't for me. And so if you can kind of show from your past, I've been in sales roles, loved it, you really de-risk yourself as a candidate. And so, okay, so getting back to the presentation here, pull it up. So you want to, again, think to stories in your life, ideally from your career. It can be like more personal in nature, related to school, or but in general, you want it focused on career events that show, career stories that show you have those traits we just walked through. The second most important thing here is you want to talk about highlights, not lowlights. And so often I will see candidates sort of like talk them when they're giving their answers, they're talking themselves down. And so I remember like one of the first candidates I worked with, he was a sales rep at an early stage company. And that company got like shut down. And the way he was wording it in his tell me about yourself was like, yeah, like I was a sales rep at this early stage startup. And we weren't able to like bring in a lot of deals. And so the company ended up shutting down. Basically, the way he framed that was like it was his fault. But like that, it's not his fault, right? He in an early stage environment as a sales rep, like there's not a lot that's in your control, right? Does the product work? Is the founder choosing the right market to go after? All these sorts of things. And so like things he could have said instead were like, yeah, I joined this early stage startup and I really learned how to structure my days because there was no structure. There was no training. I had to figure it out on my own. And so I think I did a really good job of, one, experimenting, right? Trying out tests of, I'm going to try this new cold calling script and see how it works out. And I'd iterate on it every week, and I'd meet with the other sales reps on my team, and we'd work through these things together and really figure it out. And so in that role, I think I really learned how to be calm in a chaotic environment in an early stage startup when everything is, changing on a dime so quickly. And then I learned, that's a good one. What's another good one? Another good one could be, I learned how to be a self-starter, right? No one's telling me what to do. No one even knows what to do. I have to figure it out. I have to figure out the best use of my time. And so I think I really gained those two skill sets, right? And so that would be an example of shifting your experience from talking about the bad to talking about the good, right? In a 30-minute interview, this hiring manager isn't going to figure out everything about you. They're only going to figure out what you decide to share. And so you need to share highlights, not lowlights. And so then, yeah, kind of like this, just like you want to talk through lessons you've learned, right? Like, so one example for me was one lesson. For me, one interview answer I told to get a job in tech sales was like, I wanted to kind of talk through my grit, right? As we talked about that's an important trait to have. And so here's how I did that. And also I'm just gonna like take off the screen sharing. What had happened was I was trying to get into this like elite finance club at Michigan State. I went to Michigan State, rep them till I die. What happened was I didn't get in. And so I thought I was going to get in, and probably didn't like try as hard as I should have. Like I probably went like 80% hard. I probably put in 80% what I could have given. And so then I didn't get in. And so then here's how I tell the story. And so then after that, there was about a week of me just, lots of ice cream tubs and Netflix and my bed. And then after that, I was like, okay, I got to get on the horse here. I gotta fix this. I got to change this. And so I could apply again in one semester. And so through that semester, I decided to leave nothing up to chance. I was going to give 150% effort. And I decided that I would never let the reason I'm not successful in life be because I didn't put in enough work. And so I met with all 60 members of this finance club one-on-one and got to know them better, asked them for their advice, asked them what I should be focusing on in the lead up to the interview. And come interview time, I was just so prepared, right? Because I'd spent, probably 120, 200 hours preparing for these interviews. And I crushed it and, overcame all that stuff. And so, kind of, I told a story to show you my work ethic and also how I don't give up when, shit hits the fan, when I get rejected in life. And then what else do we got here? And then, yeah, it has to be relevant, the stories you're bringing up, right? And so again, like see that blog post I talked about, make sure the stories show that you have those character traits we chatted about. Cool. So then let me briefly share the screen again. So that's the past. That's 80% of your answer. And then now let's talk to the present and future, right? And so this is the last 20% of your answer. You got to finish your answer strong. You want to finish with, why are you here today? Why are you interviewing for this role, right? What's this in the grand scheme of things? Where is this supposed to all go? And so again, you want to put yourself in the shoes of an employer. They're hiring you as an entry-level sales rep, let's say entry level or just one step above entry level. And they're going to be training you a lot and they're going to invest a lot in you. And they want you to grow through their company. Ideally, they want you to become just a top performer and end up, growing to be into bigger, more important roles that have a bigger impact on the company. Account executive, account manager, SDR manager, all this kind of stuff. And so that's how I'd finish your answer, right? It's like, and I'm here because, like, for me, here was the answer. It was something like, and actually, maybe I'll give you a bad answer first. So what a bad answer would look like, Yeah, I'm here. And so, I'm here interviewing for this tech sales role because, yeah, I want to work a remote job or, yeah, like tech seems to be taking over the world or something like that, right? You want to elaborate on it more. And so that tech is taking over the world thing, like I hear that a lot. And maybe you just want to like take it a step further, right? Differentiate yourself again. And so that was like kind of the reason I got into tech sales is I just love tech and I just wanted to be in this industry so badly. Thought it was so cool. And I saw tech sales as my avenue for that. And so I think I said something along the lines of like, yeah, so it was like so long ago. So it was okay, I got it. I got it. Okay. So I said while I've been pursuing a career in finance, um I've been learning a lot about, the financial markets and stuff like that through reading the Wall Street Journal. But truthfully, I always find myself clicking on the tech tab simply because technology is like so fascinating to me. And I'm spending all my free time just immersing myself in this industry. And so, one, I love technology. I know I want my career to be in this industry. I want to give it my all. But I also like want to apply for a sales role because as I just talked through my experience, I feel like I'm going to be a really great sales rep. I feel like I have all the personality traits. Like I mentioned, I have that grit. I've been a top performer in life and I'm a great listener, right? And in this scenario you can say just the character traits because you just walk through the experiences that show you have those traits. You're just reminding them of it. And so okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a bad versus a good tell me about yourself answer. And so let's start with a bad one. I'm just going to try to like think of one on the spot. So let's see here. So okay, cool. So hey, I'm Samir Jahar, and I'm here today. I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. Moved around a few times, but that's kind of where I grew up, and yeah, and then I went to Michigan State and moved to San Francisco at some point, and now I'm in Austin these days, and yeah, so like I've done sales before, and so in sales roles, like I've been rejected a lot. And so I've probably been rejected like 100 times in my life. And so, I've been rejected in these sales roles, but like I've overcome it and, performed well ultimately. And so yeah, that's more about me and selling and oh yeah, and then actually going back a little bit, I've also been interested in technology. Like growing up, uh I would like play video games and yeah, I was always on the computer and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think I have interest in tech and in sales. And so yeah, that's my answer to your question. Okay, so let's talk through why that was bad, right? Few buckets of things. One, like too many, probably like too many personal details, right? About like moving around, stuff like that. It's okay to like say, hey, I like grew up in this area or whatever. And then kind of the delivery of my outside of the content, the delivery of my answer was very low energy, right? Like it's kind of talking like this, right? And again, you want to be high energy. You want to be, moving your hands. You want to be smiling. You want to have some, have something behind your voice, right? Stuff like that. And then the actual stories, right? I said like I've been rejected 100 times in life. If you've been rejected 100 times in a sales role, that probably means like you've done a sales role for like a week or two. And so you get rejected a lot more than that. And so it's kind of like a red flag to your experience. And then you can kind of see after I talked about the rejection, I didn't really talk about the highlights. Like I just glossed over it. I said, yeah, and I've overcome it and I've performed well. Give me numbers that showed you perform well, right? Something like I can talk more to it in the good tell me about yourself answer. But yeah, you really want to show that use numbers to show you've been a top performer and really focus on that. And then I didn't go in like a chronological path of telling my story. I was like, oh yeah, also before sales, I was interested in tech. And then I just kind of like gave like, sometimes like I'll hear that as like a bullshit answer. It's like, playing video games does not mean you're like interested in technology. But if you're like building computers when you grew up, or you were always like, the tech person that fixed tech issues for your friends or your parents or whatever, just shows you're a little bit like of a nerd when it comes to tech, right? And tech companies like nerds, so that's a good thing. And then my finish, how I finished the answer was kind of weak sauce, right? And so yeah, I see you, Isabel. Great call outs on some of these things. And so now I'm going to give my great answer, Isabel. Let's see if it matches up to your standards here. And so let's do it. So let me think about what I want to talk about here. Okay. Cool. And leadership. Okay, cool. All right. So cool. So hey, I'm Samir. Really, really excited to be here and glad to be here. And thank you so much for taking the time with me. And so I want to walk you through about 3 experiences from my past that I think make me a great fit for the SDR role. And so the first one would probably be um, a sales role I had. And so in the sales role, I was going door to door and selling people on vacuums. And we live in 2023. So not a lot of people want to answer door to door salespeople anymore. So you can bet your ass that don't say ass, but whatever. I'm just talking to you guys. You can bet that I was getting rejected all the time. And so really one of the early lessons I learned was within those first few seconds of cold outreach, how do you capture someone's attention? How do you get them to not slam the door on you? And really, it was like sort of saying something personal about their home that I noticed, their garden looked beautiful, their car out front, whatever. Giving them some sort of compliment, so they decided to give me a second of their time. Despite that rejection, I overcame it. I learned how to get people's attention, and I ended up performing really well. In this role, I hit about 200% of my quota. And out of about 50 sales reps through the nation, I was the top 6 rep within the country. And so that was one key experience for me where I really learned how to sell people and how to use cold outreach skills to do so. The second thing I want to bring up here is my passion for technology. And so all of my free time, I've noticed, is being spent consuming content on technology. And so there have been some people within the technology industry who have really shaped my view of startups, this industry, how these companies scale. And it's just exciting and it's fascinating. I want to be part of it. And so some examples of content is Mark Andreessen's Software is Eating the World piece. Paul Graham has some great essays as well. Y Combinator has great YouTube, a YouTube channel as well. And then the final thing I want to call out is my ability to actively listen. And so at Michigan State, I'm a leader of the fastest growing volunteer org. I'm the president of the fastest growing volunteer org at the school. And really, as the president, I don't tell people what to do. Instead, I have to listen to my executive board around me, really actively listen to them, understand the issues that they're facing, and help them come up with solutions to their problem. And I think a good tech sales rep needs those same skills. And so I'm here today because simply I've been in sales roles where I've performed really well. I'm fascinated by the technology industry. And I think I have the skill set to perform really well as a tech sales rep in terms of persevering through rejection, performing well, and actively listening. And so that would be, a pretty solid answer. Maybe it's a little bit long, but you would rather your answer can be long if it's like compelling and interesting and enjoyable, right? Like one of the Batman movies, one of the Dark Knight movies is like, I think like 2.5 hours or something like that. And people watch it because it's good, right? And so people are open to, listening to longer content or whatever if it's actually good. And so what was good there was I used stories to talk through how I had these traits. I was high energy. And yeah, I structured it how I showed you to structure it. And so, cool. So that's what Tell Me About Yourself looks like. That's a good version of it. And so then let's jump into why sales, right? So this is generally the second most common answer, most question I see asked. And really the reason this question gets asked is because like sales is kind of a grind. And you better love sales. You better show to me that you love sales, or you're not really going to like this role all that much. And so here are the elements of a good why sales answer that we're going to talk to. We're going to talk through the rule of three. We're going to talk about giving a genuine answer, and then we're going to talk through how you show your love of the craft of sales and your results in a sales role. And so starting with the rule of three. And so there's this guy, Jack Welch. He was the old CEO of General Electric, kind of a crazy guy, but an epic business person. And he had this concept of the rule of three. Whenever you're making an argument or persuading someone to do something, break down your arguments in threes. And you'll kind of notice this on like any of these tech companies, these tech sales roles that you're applying to. If you go to their homepage or something like that, often you'll notice the way they're selling their benefits of their product is in like threes. You'll notice like on the page, there's like three headers of areas they help, right? We save you time, we make you more money, we automate manual tasks for you, something like that. And so I actually did that earlier in this presentation, right? I walked you through the three interviewing principles. And so utilize that same concept with your why sales answer is come up with three answers. If you only come up with two, that's okay. But you'd rather have like two great ones rather than two great ones and like, one shitty third one. And so you're going to want to communicate it in a way where it says, yeah, I really have three reasons why I want to break into sales. Reason number one is, and then blah, blah, blah. And then you say, and now kind of reason number two would be this. And then finally, reason number three would be this, right? And so that's how you kind of break up this answer, help this person who's listening to it digest it better. And so often, I'll see people answer this question and I don't know, they kind of just like give a bullshit answer that isn't actually true. And you can honestly tell when someone's like being authentic in their answer or not, like if they actually mean it or not. And so, like you really do want to lead with, generally speaking, like you do want to lead with why you want to get into a sales role, right? And so like I can talk you through some of those and kind of maybe what to avoid in that authenticity piece. And so like as an example, let me find some examples here for you. Let's say you're really interested in sales because of money. That's okay. I totally get it. I build my business because I want to make money. I get it. But you don't just want to say, yeah, reason number one is because I want to make a lot of money. And I think in sales, you can do that. And then so reason number two is, no, you want to elaborate on it. You want to talk through why money is important to you, right? And ideally, you want to tell stories that are like just better stories. And so what I mean by that is like, you don't want to say, really, like, I want to like make money because like I want this like Lamborghini so bad. And to be honest, like maybe that'll resonate with like a few salespeople, but it's just not that good of an interview answer. And so like instead, maybe it's like, I want to I'm motivated by sales because of the opportunity to make money. Because growing up, I lived in a very, poor household and we were struggling paycheck to paycheck all the time. And I know my parents did the best and I love them absolutely. And they were in a tough situation. They immigrated here from another country and they were surviving and doing the best for that they could. And they've put me in this position now to where I can take the next step for our family name. And I really think that next step is giving my future children the opportunity to be even more successful than me. And I think, obviously caring for them is very important, but also money is very important, making sure they have the right access to opportunities in life. And so that would be an example of something, right? Another example would be like, well, me and my wife, we recently had a kid, and I want to, and you're kind of noticing a theme of family, and so I think that is a good one. But yeah, other ones could be like talking more to your past, and maybe like growing up in a poor household, and seeing maybe your parents struggle financially, and how you don't want to like have to make those same mistakes and live that same life. That could be an example of something. But really, like there, generally, like I try to avoid the money stuff and like talk about better things. And so here are like some better reasons. So some better reasons would be okay, so this is like actually very true for me, is I kind of just like have this obsession. This is like the brown Indian in me. I have this people pleasing obsession to where if I'm working with a customer, if I promise a customer something, like I just need to deliver on that, or else like it's gonna eat me alive. And so there's time, like last night I was up till like 2 or 3, 4 a.m. Just working for like our customers and like getting shit done for them, simply because like I just have this drive within me. It's some deficiency obviously that I got to work through, but it means I can be a great salesperson. I can make sure customers are happy. And so obviously don't overshare there, but like you could just talk about, hey, I have sort of like this tendency to want to make others happy. And in a sales role, you can really do that, right? Most salespeople only care about themselves and their money. Me, I'm actually driven by making other people happy, pleasing others, and serving others. And I think in a sales role, you can really do that for customers, because customers come to you with problems that they need solved. And ideally, your product is solving that. So that'd be one example. Another example would be like talking through your old sales roles, right? Like show to me that like you just love your craft, right? I don't know if you guys know Kobe Bryant, epic NBA player, but like there's stories of him there's stories of him talking through the practice he did, the preparation he put in. And you can just tell this guy is obsessed with, perfecting the craft. He would text Michael Jordan, his mentor, late at night, asking him, "Hey, how'd you like do that thing? Why'd you do that thing that way?" Right? Or there's this one really great story where he was. It was like the Olympics, and so he was on Team USA, and all his team like went out to the club, and they got back at like 4 a.m. to the hotel, and then they all saw Kobe like in the lobby, and Kobe like had his warm ups on. Like he didn't go with them to the club; he had his warm ups on, and they're like, "Kobe, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm going to practice," and that just speaks to the level of his dedication, right? So like maybe like it's probably hard to come up with the same thing with selling, right? But maybe talk to the content you're consuming, the lessons you've gathered. Talk to how you're coachable, how you've actively seek feedback from other sales reps who are top performers, your sales managers who have done it before you. Talk about just how you've like just been obsessive about getting better at this. And then another piece to that is like if you've been in sales roles, talk about your results, right? If you're great at something, you probably like doing it, right? So if you talk about how you've been a top performer and it just fuels you and drives you, and you just love performing well, then that's just showing lots of great things in a sales rep. And then the last one, actually, one of the mentors here at Tech Sales Mentors, Chris, he has a really great one where he talks about his family has a history of selling. They are sellers to their core. And actually, his wife, Olivia, is the same. I don't know if her mother was a seller, but I know her dad was, and her brother is, I believe her brother is as well. And so they just have this like DNA where they were brought up to be great salespeople. Like one example is I visited Chris and Olivia. They live in Nashville, and we went to Olivia's parents' house. And when we went there, I met Olivia's brother, who was like, I think he's like 18 years old or something like that. And he just comes up to me and like is so sort of like well spoken and like professional and conversational. Like he comes up to me, firm handshake, looks me in the eye, says, hey, Samir, great to meet you. And then like ask me some personal question, right? So like it's just in their DNA, in their family to be great salespeople, people who make you feel comfortable, all that kind of stuff. And so that's sort of the elements of a good why sales answer. And so then let's see here. Let's jump into the final question, which is why our company? And so okay, before I show you what this like thing says, um, often um, your why our company answer is very critical because and it's different than your tell me about yourself and why sales and like your answers to all these other questions because your why our company answer needs to be modified for each company. It can fit some like broad framework, but like you need to bring up specific things you're finding out about each company. And so this question is really critical and differentiates a lot of candidates because a lot of candidates don't do enough research on the company or don't do any research at all. And for instance, like, you know, an interviewer will ask that question, hey, why our company? And a candidate will say something like, yeah, like I saw you guys on LinkedIn and I saw you were hiring for the SDR role. And yeah, the job opening looked interested. And so I went ahead and applied. Oh God. Oh, that's brutal. That's just like, no, like more. I need more. I need more there. And so here's an example of like the kind of response you want to get. And so here's this candidate we work with, My Best, and she hopefully you guys can see this well enough. But I'll say it out loud. She says, "Hey team, I just completed my phone interview for this company. I must say it did go well. They told me more about blah 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 and how they work. And whatever and whatever." And basically, she said, and she was impressed that I did company research. That stood out to her most because she mentioned a lot of candidates don't do company research. And then yada, yada, yada. She moved on to the next step. Right. And so this is a key differentiator for you in your interviews is doing research on the company. And so maybe right now you're like, well, what am I supposed to research? There's so much to learn about a company. There's not enough time. There's so much to learn, not enough time. And so here are like the general themes of what I think are important. And so the first thing you want to do is just lead with your curiosity. You have to genuinely be curious about this company and find things that interest you about this company. You kind of got to be a nerd. And so, you know, maybe this, like, if it's not easy for you, then I don't know how to help you, but I'm a nerd. And so it's easier for me to be curious about companies and the people at them because this stuff excites me and fascinates me. And so you really want to have that first mindset of being curious when you're exploring and learning more about a company. And so really, here are the three buckets of things that I think are here are the three buckets of things that I generally use to like, you know, scratch that itch of curiosity and use for my interview answers is customer stories, who the leaders are on the team, and shared values and traits. And also not bullshit company values, not like going to their company values page. In general, that stuff is like just like written by like, you know, HR. And as I never, when I was an employee at a company, I wasn't like too actively thinking about the company values. Because yeah, most of it's like it just feels like bullshit to me. So so let's do that. Let's go through some of those. So how can we do this here? So let's do a company as an example. So let's do this one company called Rippling. So here we go here. Okay, cool. So Rippling, a pretty dope tech company. And the first thing I'm going to show you how to be curious about is customers and customer stories. And the reason why is you're applying for a sales role. And so this is a great way to not only show you did company research, but also show you can be a great salesperson. Great salespeople, they don't obsess over this page. They don't obsess over the product page. Instead, what they obsess over is the customers page. They understand what this customer's world is like, what their problems are, what their goals are. If you can understand customers, then you know how to sell to that customer. And so let me walk you through kind of like how I would look through a customer story and I'd bring it up in an interview. And so let's see here. I'll just like pick one here. Okay, I don't want to go like too deep here. So let's see. I don't know any of these companies. These are all like no-name companies. Whatever. Okay, cool. So let's do this one. I gotta share that. Window. Let's do this one. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, okay, cool. So basically the way to break down these customer stories is there can be a lot of information. And of course you want to like read through it, but really you're looking for two big buckets of things. What are the business problems that a company is facing that made them come to a company like Rippling? And then after they use Rippling, after they use the product, how does it positively impact their business? And so let's start with the problems here. So, okay. So it's basically like this company was growing fast, but all of these like finance, HR, and IT responsibilities were left to a single employee. And so let's see. Yeah, and basically it was just saying like, hey, this single employee couldn't keep up, right? When you hire all these new employees, there's all of these HR tasks that come up, there's all these IT tasks that come up, there's all these finance tasks that come up. And just a single individual couldn't keep up with that workload. And so that was the business problem, right? Was someone who couldn't handle the workload, which means they couldn't sort of do their tasks, right? It meant sort of, oh, this company either needs to hire another person, right, to do these sort of manual tasks, or they need to automate this. This is sort of the business challenge they're facing. And then, yeah, and then sort of, okay, like they decided to use Rippling, and here's sort of the outcome from using Rippling. And so there's all these like technical parts, like focus less on this, like, oh, like here are all the features, right? Oh, they set up these new devices, they created these counts, they're compliant. Instead, you want to focus on like business impact, business numbers. And so what does that mean? That means basically Rippling automated all of these manual tasks that this single employee was doing to onboard all of these new employees, these all these finance, HR, and IT manual tasks. And that means this startup is able to scale hiring fast while not hiring additional people to handle the onboarding of them, all that kind of stuff. It means this single employee can be 3 times more efficient, right? And also, it means this person, instead of like working on like low value tasks, they can work on more strategic tasks. And so, what do I mean by that? Like a low value task is just something that is like, that can just like very easily be done. It doesn't take a lot of thought, right? So, as an example, like, oh, I'm filling in information about your address and your social security number, so on and so forth, so we can pay you, right? That's not like, it's important to do it, but it's like very boring, like easy to do tasks. It just takes time to do it, right? Or like setting up devices, right? Making sure, oh, we send your laptop to your address. Maybe I have to go to Amazon. I have to type in your address, that kind of stuff, right? And so with Rippling, they automate these things, right? You hit one button and all of these things are done for you rather than you having to click 1,000 buttons, type in all these things to get the same task done. And so when you don't have to focus on these low value add tasks anymore, it means you can focus on more strategic work. What does that mean, right? Let's say, okay, this person let's say they're focused on HR, right? What's more strategic work in HR? More strategic questions for someone in HR. Maybe they would talk about it here. I'm not sure if they would, but like I can give you an example. Like an example would be like, how do we make our onboarding experience better new hires feel very confident in joining our company. Often when a new hire joins the company, they're still a little anxious. They're excited but anxious. They're like, did I choose the right company? So on and so forth. And so that would be an example of something more strategic, right? Or like, oh, we have lots of employees leaving our company. Why is that? That's a very important thing to solve for our company, right? That's more like strategic work. Um, and so Daniel makes an amazing point here, right? Like, don't obsess about the product and all the little features. Instead, focus on what problems customers are facing and how they're trying to use your product to solve them, right? So let's do a really stupid example here. If you have a headache, like I had a migraine this morning, how are you going to sell me on a product that solves my migraine? Like, just think for a second, right? Okay, like you're probably thinking in your head, like, all right, I'm going to tell this guy to use ibuprofen or Advil or whatever your flavor of headache medicine is. And what you're going to say to me, you're not going to say to me, oh, let me tell you about this product that is built by this 100+ team of chemists in Germany. They have spent decades perfecting a formula of perfect chemicals. And these chemicals enter your body, and in your body, they do this and that. No, you just say to me, hey, if you take this, your headache will go away, and you can go to the gym, Samir, or, oh, you can work on this presentation that you have tonight that you're doing, right? That's how you do it. You help me solve my problem. My problem is I need to get this headache out of the way so I can go live my life and do the things I need to do, right? You don't obsess over the features. So that's kind of like what I would recommend there. And then, so what else do we have here? All right, so I'm going to stop. Good call, Isabel. I will go back to my normal self here. And the other thing I want to show you is you can join a company because you're early in your career, right? If you're joining if you're getting an SDR, BDR role, you're early in your tech sales journey. If you want to, one way to show you're really coachable is talk to the leaders that are at this company. Talk about the leaders that you've done research on that are at this company and how that really excites you, because you want to learn from the best in the business. You want to be someone who's a sponge, who's soaking up information. And so as an example of what I mean by that is, let's do this. So Rippling. So a few examples is one is the CEO of Rippling, is pretty interesting. If you ever were to look up his background, first of all, this is dope. He doesn't even say he's a CEO at Rippling. He says customer support. That's how customer obsessed this guy is. So love that. And so that would be one thing you could call out. That's really showing you're doing your research. Other examples would be he's been a CEO before. And if you were to look up the story of Zenefits, you'll see they're kind of a startup that grew really fast and kind of crashed and burned. And so Parker, he didn't give up after that, right? He could have just given up on this whole tech thing, whatever. No, he started Rippling and has created an even more epic company. And that's respect. That's a leader I would love to get behind, someone who doesn't, back down after he fails in life. No, he has his best act after he's failed in life. That could be something. But in general, maybe you won't know the CEO story too well. And so instead, you can speak to sales leaders on the team. And so you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to the people section. Basically, you can filter on the sales employees at the company. And so they have a ton of sales employees here. You can see it's 630. So I'm going to try to bring this down a little bit. And so I'm going to search for sales development manager and look to some of the leaders on the team and look at their experience, look at what they're saying, stuff like that, right? So maybe I can find an example or two for you of things that would be interesting to me. And so let's see here. And maybe even ideally, you do this for the hiring manager that you are interviewing with. That would make a really great impression on them, right? And so in general, like sometimes the about section is good, but in general, it's like often too vague. And so I don't really reference things from there. One example, okay, here would be an example, right? Um, I would love to work for an SDR manager who has been in my shoes, right? Who has done the SDR role at this company, understands our customer, understands the problems they're facing, and understands the how to overcome the main challenges a rippling SDR will face. And so, Nikki, it's great to see that you did that as the SDR, and clearly you performed well, right? Because you got promoted to an SDR manager, right? And so that would be an example of one. Morgan, let's check out her. Okay, here would be another example, right? Like Morgan, like what really excites me about Rippling and the chance to work with you is just the amount of experience you have as an SDR manager. And so I saw it at call out the companies, right? Appatentive and Help Scout. And so I know you're not sort of like an early manager who is still trying to figure out the ropes and stuff like that. Like you understand the issues SDRs face, and you've had the experience and time to figure out how to help them correct those mistakes. And so I'd really love to work under a leader like you, learn from you, soak up all your knowledge, and perform really well. And so those would be like leadership examples. And then the last thing I called about here, okay, the last thing I called out was shared values and traits. And so I want to see if I can pull this in here and show you this example. So here's what I mean by shared values and traits. And so let me pull this up. So this was after I got my first tech sales role. I decided I wanted to like become a founder. And before becoming a founder, I wanted to before becoming a founder, I wanted to learn from a founder. I wanted to work as employee number one next to a founder. And so I worked for this guy named Sully, or I was trying to work for this guy named Sully. I ended up working for him. And so what I did was I basically found content about him online, just like searching his name. And so, like with these people's like LinkedIn, they'll post and stuff like that. You just want to learn things about them. And so, as an example, like I'm going to show you some of these articles and whatever. And so like here were the articles I found. Like here was one about like San Francisco entrepreneurs. And so in this one, it talks about how whatever. Oh yeah, he talks about like recruiting the right first people is so critical to a company. And so I think I said, oh, he asked me a question. He's like, what do you want to be doing in a few years or something like that? And whatever, I gave him some like vague answer and then he didn't respond. And so I followed up with him and I said, I want to like build, what I really want to do is I want to build a startup from scratch. And in an early day, the startup can face challenges like finding customers, right? Or recruiting talent, right? And that recruiting talent thing. Oh, you can't see my screen. Let me do this. Let's do this. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah. So that recruiting talent thing I found right here, right? And so he talks about how it's really important in the early days to like recruit talent, right? So that was one thing I called out. And then another thing was like instead of working, what did I say here? Instead of working on a sole problem, oh yeah, basically I say I'm very focused on one problem. Rather, I would love to work at an early stage startup where you can work on a variety of functions. And then I brought up some like nerdy joke about some presentation he did. And in this present, I think it just basically talked about how like, oh, for your customers of your product, you want them to do the same thing over and over again. And then the last thing was like I brought up a book in tech. It was like this book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And I said, instead of doing that, instead of reading this book about how startups are hard, I want to start living it. And then it was a book about, or sorry, I referenced an article about how basically his company was on the brink of death. And then he took out basically a loan. He took out a loan for his company that basically would have bankrupted him if it didn't work out or something like that. And yeah, just like bet on his startup. And so like I was like, I want to sort of like be in those tough environments, because I bet it builds really strong character and all that kind of stuff. And so that would be an example of showing like, hey, I have the same values as you. And so when you look on these people's LinkedIns, you can look to things they're posting, look to things they're commenting on. Sometimes they're very detailed in describing their roles or in their about section. If there's anything that stands out there that really like resonates with you, call it out and be specific about it. So yeah, so that's what I would recommend on the Why Our Company answer. And then let's see here. What's next? Oh, so those are kind of like, the common interview questions you're going to get and how to answer them. And don't worry, this is all recorded, and so you can check it out after. And kind of what I want to like finish with talking about is two things. One, I want to give time for questions, for any questions you guys have. And so please, if you have any questions, start throwing those in the chat, and I'm happy to answer those. And spend the next, let's say, 15 minutes answering questions. Last thing I'll call out is these interview questions. It's hard to come up with your answer and make sure they're right. And these aren't the only interview questions you're going to get asked. You're going to get asked lots of questions. If you don't want to figure this out on your own, I highly recommend you check out our program. We get you into interviews. We tell you what to say in interviews and pretty much negotiate your offer at a top tier tech company. And so you can, if you're interested in all that kind of stuff, cool, hit me up on LinkedIn, or, you can sign up on our website at techsalesmentors.com. And so finally, let's finish with questions. Anything you guys got, happy to answer. And yeah, we can go from there. And so I'm not seeing any questions right now. So hopefully you guys ask them, because this is your chance right now. This is your chance to ask whatever you want to ask, whether it's related to SDR interview questions or SDR career stuff or tech sales career stuff or tech or startups, whatever you want. Happy to take until 8:30 CST. I'm on CST and answer those questions for you. So let me know. All right, I see one. Isabel is just grinding in this chat. I love it. Okay. How to best communicate a career change into tech sales. Okay, so Isabel, I'm gonna pull up your profile here, and then yeah, maybe if I do that, I can kind of help you with this. Let's see here. Cool. So let's see here. Let's see your experience. So, okay, so you're in a sales camp. That's cool. Okay, so what am I noticing here? Okay, so noticing, okay, you graduated in 2019. All right, cool. Okay, so lots of old school experience there. And then we got some new stuff here. So, okay. All right. So I want to be honest with you. I do want to be honest with you, Isabel. You are going to find it very difficult to find a job in tech sales right now. But maybe let me try to answer your first question, which is how do you communicate a career change into tech sales? Well, really, I think again, like this needs to start with you being genuine about and genuine, authentic about what excites you about tech sales, right? And so probably like a challenge most people face with this question is they say they talk about what they're running from rather than what they're running to. And so don't talk about how you're running away from being a student optician. Don't talk about like how you're running away from, this glasses and contacts field. Talk more about what's attracting you to tech sales. And so maybe for like, yeah, it's just hard to know like what's going on with your life to properly answer that question for you. But like here would be like an example if I'm just trying to if I'm just trying to do it. Okay, so I do see you do have some like sales experience from the past, right? It is pretty old, but like whatever, we can like try to use that a little bit. And so you can talk about maybe like someone asks, so why are you transitioning from vision care to tech sales? You can say, well, about let's say, I don't know, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, I decided that the career path I was in wasn't aligned with my long term career goals. And really, what my long term career goals are really three things. I want to be constantly challenged. I want to face new challenges. And as I accomplish and overcome those challenges, I want to take on more responsibility and face new challenges. I want to be in a role where I'm surrounded by people who are very eager to perform well and like really want to crush it. And then the last thing, I want to be in a role where I am communicating with others. In my past roles, that's where I've had the most joy is communicating actually with customers. And so starting with that first piece, which is being constantly challenged, so that's what I had as a broad goal for a career path, and I started exploring career paths, and eventually found out that tech sales fits all of these three things. And so what I've discovered is when it comes to that first piece on being constantly challenged, one, I learned that there is a clear career path in tech sales, and if you perform well, that career path is available to you. And what's exciting about that is if I perform well and I master a role, I will not be stuck in that role for the next 10, 15, 20 years of my life. There will be, because these companies grow fast and have aggressive targets, they're going to want to put me in a role with more responsibility and ask more of me, ask me to make a bigger impact, to take on more responsibility. And so I'm really excited about not only this SDR role that I'm interviewing with, but the long-term potential here. I'm excited about performing well and growing into an account executive, blah, blah, blah. And so the second piece is, what are we talking about? Second piece. Oh, I'm blanking. Whatever. The third piece, though, the third piece was like finding being in a role where you're communicating with customers, right? And so there you can talk about like if we reference that stuff earlier, right? You're just really driven by helping people solve their problems. Maybe you tell a story of how you've done that, like a specific story where you really went over the top in helping someone and making them feel great as a customer, and how in tech sales you'll have to do the same with challenges that come up. And so, yeah, that maybe something like that. Cool. Glad that answer was helpful for you. And so then let's go. I got a question here from Lisa. Lisa asks, I need to answer details. Okay, so okay, cool. So basically, Lisa's problem is, let me pull up Lisa's profile. Lisa's like, hey, I got I ha- I'm let's see here. I need to answer questions about like, past KPIs, but like my previous sales role like didn't have KPIs. And so the brutal honest answer here is um okay, yeah. So Lisa, I'm pulling up your LinkedIn, and really here, like I'm not seeing sales roles. And also Isabel, I forgot to mention this with you. You guys really need like sales roles to get a job in tech sales right now. And so you need to do non-tech sales roles to get a job in tech sales. And so I highly recommend, like, there's lots of like places where you can get non-tech sales roles, but some examples that I often see candidates come from are like TQL, it's some logistics company. Angie, they're like some home service goods company. Glen Coco, they're like an Uber type model for sales roles. And so you guys, like, those are easier places to get sales roles. You guys just need to get experience doing lots of cold outreach, cold calls, cold emails, and performing well in sales roles. You need to develop that evidence, because right now the hiring market in tech sales is tough. Companies are very strict on who they're hiring. because in the previous few years, they like overhired, they hired people who weren't that qualified. And so now times have changed. Now everyone's buttoning up and being a little bit more strict. And so you're not going to get a job. Generally speaking, you're not going to get a job in sales without like real sales experience. And so, yeah, Isabel, I see you're talking about like, hey, you do have, transferable sales skills. If you held a quota, stuff like that, like you need to talk to that. If you did like cold calling, stuff like that, then you need to like be talking more to that in your profile. And so, yeah, so that's kind of all the questions I'm seeing. I do see a lot more people in here, but no questions coming from you guys. And so I think we'll end the live here. And so again, thanks so much for coming. If you guys want help in your tech sales job search and want to consider our program, check us out at techsalesmentors.com. But yeah, great chatting with you guys. Hit me up. Let me know how it went. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a future live, probably next Thursday. Cool. Catch you around.